In 1971, a female reporter for the BBC went out to the streets of London in the name of feminism to give men a taste of their own medicine for the constant harassment she gets being a young woman in a big city. She does this by pinching their bums to show men how she really feels, constantly being harassed because she's a woman. And the results?
Hello, so how do you feel about the complete equality of the sexes?
Do what?
Complete equality of the sexes.
No.
How do you feel about ladies picking gentlemen up in the streets?
Well, I always do myself.
Do you think it's a nice idea if ladies molest gentlemen in the street?
It's refreshing, if nothing else.
Excuse me, sir, how do you feel about women pinching men's bottoms in the street?
Most, if not all, the men liked it when she pinched their ass. And why wouldn't they? Look at her. But of course, this is really sad because this is the exact thing that women fear every day when they go out and face the world. But then it made me realize that if this woman was ugly, not only would she not get away with pinching random men's asses on the street, she wouldn't even have a job in the first place. And that's when I realized that being an ugly woman in this world kinda sucks. There's an episode of a show called Louie that I found really interesting, which involves a fat girl making moves on the main character Louie and eventually getting him to go on a date with her. Now Louie doesn't initially want to go on a date with her because she's fat, but eventually realizes he has nothing better to do and agrees. But you see, Louie is kind of a piece of shit. Not because he's trying to be, but because sometimes being a piece of shit and being nice are kind of the same thing. When the fat girl confesses to him how hard dating is to her because she's a fat girl,
try dating in New York in your late 30s as a fat girl.
Louie lies to her.
Well, you're not. I mean,
Don't.
you're not fat.
That is so goddamn disappointing, Louie. Do you know what the meanest thing is you can say to a fat girl? You're not fat. I mean, come on, buddy.
And then the fat girl starts going on a tangent about how nobody loves her because she's fat. Now, making fun of fat people is second nature to me. They're very easy to make fun of because they're fat and lumpy. But seeing this woman pour her soul out because she doesn't get basic love and compassion even makes me really sad. After all, it's easy to make fun of a whole group, but when that hate is concentrated onto one person, it's harder to justify. Louie does eventually hold her hand, but not because he loves her, no. He does it out of pity after hearing her complain. And so the whole idea that this show is trying to portray is that if you're a girl and you're ugly, the only way to get affection is pity. And that's really fucking sad. And so I decided to traverse into the blue trap bubble that is the nature of unattractive women and try to come up with a legit solution on how to fix that problem. Now looking back on my 41 years of living, I've always noticed that even weird looking guys can get with attractive women if they're hot enough. I've seen so many short and stout Mexicans with beer bellies, and they always seem to have a trophy wife with breast implants so firm that you can play basketball with them. It's phenomenal. And it made me realize that even if a guy is ugly, it's not the end of the world for him. He can be funny, he can be rich, he can be famous, but even if he isn't any of that, he can still get a mail order bride. Which isn't the same for women at all. As controversial as a lot of red pill self-help content is, it gives guys a blueprint to climb the ladder and be somebody. But the red pill equivalent for a woman is don't be promiscuous, get a good man in your 20s, and your value decreases as you get older. Which is a pretty shitty pill to swallow if you think about it, even if it's kinda true. Even since birth, the selection of toys each gender associates themselves with is different. Boys like superheroes, girls like princesses, and you'd think that's rudimentary until you realize it's easier for boys to look to and relate to Spider-Man than it is for a girl to relate to Barbie. The point of Spider-Man is that anyone can be under the mask, but the point of Barbie is that if you're skinny, white, and beautiful, you get to be the princess. Since birth, a woman's entire identity is tied to how good they look. There are no ugly or fat Barbies. It took Martin Luther King Jr. getting assassinated for them to release a black one, and there's still no indigenous Barbies to this day. Male role models come in all shapes and sizes. We have short, balding comedians who are considered the greatest at their craft. Some of the greatest actors of all time aren't necessarily beautiful, and our value isn't tied to our looks, which gives us some leeway to climb up, whereas a woman is strictly tied to how hot they are. The female companions in the James Bond movies called the Bond girls were mainly there to be hot. Yeah, some of them had decent storylines and character progressions, but the core value they provided was fat material for the whole week. Unironically, One Piece is the best example of this because we have so many male characters that come in all shapes and sizes, but the women look like tits on a stick. Even my perception is warped because of this. Since I'm so used to women not being interesting at all as characters, I caught myself rolling my eyes when they gave women actual character traits. And so every time a woman tries to call herself ugly, even as a joke, 5 psych ward nurses spawn out of thin air to restrain her because she might kill herself. They can't even joke around about their insecurities without making people feel uncomfortable. Because if you're an ugly girl, you're not supposed to act like you're beautiful, but you're also not supposed to say you're ugly either. And if you can't even joke about your insecurities, how else are you supposed to cope? And I have sympathy for the fat women that fight for their life trying to get their fat asses in billboards and magazines because no one else is looking out for them. Men make fun of them because they're fat, women make fun of them because they're fat, even I do it, so they need to stick together, otherwise they have no one else. I also understand the need for woke feminists to exist with their dirty legs and their motto of purposely looking ugly because looking good or losing weight or putting on makeup or shaving sexualizes their body to men. But as strong as the feminist movement is, you can't tell a gender who's literally conditioned by everyone around them to look good to not give a fuck. That's unconstitutional. Because deep down, girls, they want to feel beautiful. Just like how boys want to feel capable. Obviously, I'm generalizing, but I've heard so many stories of the ugly girl in the group not getting invited to the boat party because she's just ugly. Even though I've done the exact same thing, I've always tried to separate the ugly chick from the one I actually want because I wanted to talk to the hotter one. And I realized that in treating women like this, I'm hurting people, and I need to change my ways and learn from my malicious behavior. In a video a while back, I made an observation about myself saying that I only take attractive women seriously. But the problem is, I did absolutely nothing to condemn this behavior. I questioned the way I objectify women, but I never did anything to actually change it. Instead, in a half-assed effort to justify it, I said, well, I'm just a guy, so I guess that's the way things are, am I right? But I realize now that this makes me a poser, a fraud, a coward even. Because even though I was on the precipice of a breakthrough of fixing this issue, I quickly retreated back to the original bubble of knowledge I had because of my emotions and masculine pride. And so I brainstormed for a long time about how to tackle my problem with objectifying women, but I realized that the answer had been in front of me the whole time. And this leads me back to the feminist news report for the BBC. I made fun of the working class men who didn't even flinch at this beautiful report as vast for the equality of the sexes, but I realized that these guys are the answer I was looking for. If this woman came up to me and pinched my ass and asked about my opinion about the equality of the sexes to me, I'd have lied to her face and said I was a raging feminist in order to score a date with her. But these men, they kept it real and told her how it is. They lied to her face, they tipped their hats, they shut down her shit. And it made me think, these guys are the real feminists. These guys are the answer, because they treat all women equally. Even if an ugly woman pinched their ass, it would not take her opinion seriously because she's a woman. And so from now on, I've decided for the betterment of the world to not take any woman seriously at all. It doesn't matter how good looking they are or how ugly they are, I'll take none of their opinions seriously for the sake of equality. The only reason this reporter was able to get a job in the first place was because she was hot enough, and even then, she might have had to suck a producer's dick to make it happen. Same with all the talented and beautiful actresses that had to suck Harvey Weinstein's dick to get roles in his movies. And I, for one, am sick of living in a world like that. I think ugly women deserve the same opportunity to suck Harvey Weinstein's dick and get roles in his movies too. And that's why from now on, I decided to treat all women, even the ugly ones, equally. Thank you for watching. Yo, hope you enjoy the video. My Patreon is right here if you want to sub. There's some exclusively interesting content in here, and it helps me out. Check it out.